Yet again, my hand, pardon my hand. Yay! Hi, sorry I'm late. So many things. It's a Monday, and yeah, Monday here. Anyway, I'm back and ready for another chapter. So, yeah, I'm gonna dive right in because, again, like I said, very late. My apologies. And for those of you just turning in, this is chapter 10 of The Sword and the Rose. So, without further ado, Sword and the Rose, chapter 10. The chief priest was visibly enraged. His face was red and a vein throbbed at his temple. My Lord Baron, the punishment of priests is done by the members of the priesthood, unless they transgress civil laws. Even then, my Lord Baron, the tradition has been, your pardon, Master Priest, but what would be the punishment for creating a riot and attempted murder, according to the priesthood? Why, we would have to assess what had been done and decide on a punishment, my Lord Baron. Would it be as much as 20 lashes? It might, but we would... 30 lashes? My Lord Baron? 40? My Lord Baron, you ask me to prejudge a case which has not been called. Witnesses would have to be summoned. I was a witness, as were several members of my guard. Now, I saw what I saw, and I would come as a witness to your court, were I certain that justice would be done. Could I count your promise that Veritor Hanarellant would receive much punishment? I cannot prejudge a case. Gwalsor tapped his finger on the leather cuff over his left wrist. I have a strong fear that if I turn this man over to you, Master Priest, that I shall never hear of the case again. And when I demand to know the end of it, I will be told that his sentence was a month's duty sweeping the temples or some such. I cannot have that. I will let it be known that no one in my barony is permitted to break the laws. Lord Veritor Hanarellant will receive my justice for all to see. My Lord Baron, I have spoken my last word on the matter. You are dismissed. The chief priest stood for a moment. Then Malgathrop stepped forward. Without waiting on the indignity of being marched out, the chief priest turned and left. Malga stepped up beside Gwalsor. Seems you have a knack for seriously upsetting the old red robe. Gwalsor shook his head. I wish I could avoid it, but he always presses me where I won't be pressed. Maybe you want to know that now that this Veritor is in jail, rumors says he may stir up people against the old hedge wizard. Somehow that does not surprise me in the slightest. Is there any proof connecting him to the actual deed? Lafetta shook his head. Only stories about how he complained about the wizard. I'll snoop more and see what happens. Brynid Patton was waiting when he walked out of his hall. Might I have a word with you, Lord Baron? Of course. My son is not well. He is recovering from a cracked rib. Such things take time. You still make him serve as a page, though he is still suffering from his injuries. She spoke quietly, with no hint of accusation. It is the other way around, lady. I have to give him direct orders as his baron to prevent his working too hard. If I order him not to work at all, as I did for the first week, he frets and fusses until the healers tell me he's making himself ill. So I let him work on the condition that I direct the sorts of work he can do. I also tell him when it's time to stop working. She nodded. A half smile came to her lips. Yes, she said almost absently. He would like that, wouldn't he? That boy. Suddenly she looked up at Gwalsor, and her expression changed to one of near embarrassment. I wonder what you think of me, Lord. Every time I talk to you, it's to complain about my son or it might be happening to him. Gwalsor was caught off guard. He understood that Brennan was a proud woman, and that this was as much of an apology as she could manage at the moment. It's natural, lady, that you would be concerned about your son. Inwardly, he was wishing he knew what to say to let her know that he accepted her apology. Thank you, Lord. They both stood there with nothing further to say until she finally said, Thank you for your time, Lord, and then turned and walked away. Gwalsor stood looking after her. Melga stood beside him, silent and unreadable. The Veritor's only defense at his trial was no defense. The priesthood alone has the power to punish me. Not for civil crimes, answered the Baron, as he had answered the chief priest. I do not recognize the right of this court to try me, said the priest, and he was silent afterward. Witnesses were called. The chief priest began with his declaration that only priests had the right to try a priest. We've already dealt with that matter, you and I. This is a civil crime, and comes under my jurisdiction. Have you anything further to say on the matter at hand? Lord Baron, I protest. You claim that this is a civil matter, but Veritor was merely doing his duty as he saw it. This makes it a religious matter. He was doing his duty? Seldra's tears. Does his duty include incitement of ordinary citizens to riot and murder? Surely you would not even make that claim. Lord, perhaps he was a little hasty in his actions, but he was acting to attempt to turn away the wrath of the gods from the people. The wrath of the gods is to be turned away by incitement to murder? Lord, you know yourself that this healer is the one who uses stones of ascertainment. Many persons consider this tantamount to divination, which is a trespass upon the prerogatives of the gods to know the future. I see. Tell me, Master Priest, are all the priests in the land agreed on this view? The divinations and the use of stones of ascertainment are evil in the sight of the gods? Lord Baron, you yourself know the answer to that question. No, not all priests are agreed on the matter. We in the south part of the kingdom have been studying the issue for some time, and more we are coming to believe that this is the correct belief. Gwalsor leaned on his chin on his right fist. And yet, Master Priest, in the north, where I lived until just lately, there was more than one priest who used a stone of ascertainment and thanked the gods for the gift, that it assisted him in dealing with the sick and the injured. And when last I heard, the north of this kingdom was not suffering under any particular displeasure of the gods. No, I reject any claim that this man, Veritor, was doing any expressed will of the gods. Lord Baron! Master Priest, the argument is closed. Have you any other evidence to give? And I will not hear sermons on how the will of the gods is not to be ignored. The chief priest glanced at Malgathop, standing by the Baron's chair, and bowed his head. Nothing further, Lord. There was little more to the trial. The Veritor had made no denial of the facts, but rather gloried in them. Once the possibility of justification on the grounds of service to the gods was taken out of the matter, there was nothing more left. After all was done, the Baron asked the Veritor to reply to the charges, but he remained silent. Gwalsor looked at the prisoner, still proudly aloof. Veritor Han Orellant, this is your first offense. I therefore sentence you to only 30 lashes. They led him forth 3 days later, and the herald called for the crowd's attention. For the crimes of incitement to riot and assault, Veritor Han Orellant has been sentenced to receive 30 lashes. Let the punishment begin. The baronial justiciar laid on the 30 lashes to the occasional shouts and jeers of the crowd. Veritor said nothing through the whole business. The chief priest was there, along with several of his people. They took Veritor from the whipping post with something approaching ceremony, and bore him away as a person of honor, not one who had committed a crime, and just punishment for it. Gwalsor was not given much time to contemplate the aftermath of Veritor's punishment, for a messenger from the east was waiting in his hall. The man was grey with dust and weary, but servants had already given him a cup of wine, and gave his message in a firm, clear voice. My Lord Baron, 2 weeks ago the bandits came out of Lusmore and took away some 30 peasants. The knight holder, Cardal Dar Isternlal, took a force of 25 men into Lusmore to recover the peasants. 3 days ago, 7 men came back from that mission. The bandits had laid traps and ambushes all along the route, and before they had reached the lair of the bandits, Lord Cardal's force was well nigh destroyed. Lord Cardal himself was slain, and those who remained decided to turn back. The bandits continued to attack as they withdrew, so that only 7 of them survived. Gwalsor tapped his fingers to his leather cuff. Who commands in that holding now? There are no knights left in the holding, my lord, Baron. Lord Cardal died unmarried and childless. The chief steward, the chief of the castle guard, and the bailiffs are all dealing with their own particular offices until such a time as a new holder is appointed. Thank you. You may go, though I might wish to talk to you again later. He turned to his marshal. Foraith, we'll have to consult regarding this. Foraith, what do you know of this Lusmore? When I first arrived, I'd heard the bandits were moving into it. Is there anything you can tell me? Little enough, my lord. Mostly tales I hear told. The Lusmore was to be a swamp. The Lusmore be a swamp over the east of us, mostly uninhabited, save for a few who fled the towns and villages for one reason or another. I'd also heard of bandits moving in there. It said they'd be they were led by a fellow named as Bloody Tostig. I hadn't thought it a matter for us to be worried about. No more than any other bandit leader with a small following. Seems I was wrong. Though the forces we've had to work with, I doubt we could have done much. Whoever was right or wrong will have to deal with it now. Have you any idea why they take peasants off into the swamp with them? It could hardly be a matter of ransom. Must be they want the peasants to do some sort of work for them, my lord. Gwalsor frowned. That would seem to be the most likely reason, or most likely notion. I wonder, could they be trying to farm in the swamp? Borath shook his head. Too wet in there to be able to do more than a bit here and a bit there. Not worth troubling about. And these are bandits, not farmers. They don't think of growing or farming, but rather going out and taking what they want from the farmers around. Gwalsor frowned. Perhaps some sort of building? He waved his hand. Leave that aside for the time. We'd best have the messenger back in and see what's left for protection in the holding. The messenger was able to tell them that there was still remaining 3 horse and 8 foot to protect the holding. Gwalsor looked at Foraith. Not enough, I think. What do you say? I'd say the bandits know right well how hard hit the holding be, and I'd say they'll be taking advantage of that situation as soon as they can. We'll need to send one of our more trusty knights with a small force to keep the holding until we can see to its safety more permanently. Not one of the knight holders either. I want no complaints about aggrandizing one or another of them. How large a force can we spare? Not more than 5 horse and a dozen foot. We don't dare weaken the castle's forces too much. If Wardick should try us after all this summer. Too true. Do you have anyone in mind to command, at least on a temporary basis? Foraith ran a hand down his chin, considering. Pardordar and Eswick, my lord. He's a young man, but he knows how to fight. And maybe, more importantly, when not to fight. He's won a silver or two from me at Knucklebones here and there. Gwalsor gave the marshal a little smile. You wouldn't be sending him out there and hoping he'd get himself killed to avoid paying gambling debts, would you? Forsyth straightened and saw the look on the Baron's face. He chuckled. No, Lord, not that. It's just that he partly knows when to bet and when not. And also maybe he's lucky. Men like to have a lucky commander almost as much as a capable one. Morning brought more news. An archer came in, asking to see the Baron. Both Gualsor and Forsyth met with him. The man bowed low and smiled. My Lord Baron? She'd be as you expected. Each night we kept watch at one of those likely trails. First time, though, Wardick's men come by one of the others, killed 5 cows. But we knew they'd been likely to go the same way again, so we held it to our place. 2 nights later, they came riding down. Sure as sure. We came up behind them, got him in the moonlight, and started putting arrows to him. There be 8 to the party, Lord, and we killed 5 along with 2 horses. I brought the other horse back with me. Rest of the lads, they'll be waiting by one of the other trails. Gualsor smiled a grim smile, and Forsyth saw the lines on his face deepen. Good. There'll be a reward for you and the rest at the end of the summer. Spend the night in the castle before you go back. The man bowed. Thank you, my Lord Baron. He was smiling as he bowed himself out. Forsyth spoke. Seems your plan worked, my lord. It seems so. I wish we had been able to do more, though. If we'd the men, we could have made it more costly for him to raid at all, let alone allowing him to slaughter 5 of our cows. Begging your pardon, Lord, but if I had antlers, I could be a spare reindeer for Melgothop. We haven't the men, because Raffle decided to support the prince. Since you arrived, we've been able to pick up a scant dozen who've wandered in from other places, but that hardly seems near to the supply of what we've lost. Sorry, it hardly comes near to supplying what we've lost. And the fault be none of yours, Lord. Gualsor smiled and rubbed at his leather cuff. Thank you for absolving me, Forsyth. The difficulty is, if we lose a fight with Warwick, we might well have nothing left with which to protect ourselves. Wherever the fault lies with our situation, it is I that must make what I can of it. As Gualsor walked the castle courtyard in the afternoon, Melgothop appeared beside him. Finding something in your rooms again? Another curse? Not this time. This is a love charm. Gualsor grinned. Do you suspect anyone in particular? Melgothop grinned in response. Maybe the one who keeps tying herself to your waist? Gualsor chuckled. Yes, she's been working hard at trying to gain my soul and undivided attention. She started off badly when she tried to flatter my vanity as a hero, and she's been trying to make up for it ever since. It wouldn't surprise me if she started to lose patience. Why don't you take her to bed? Put her mind at rest. You honestly think it would be the end of it, Melga? If I were to bed her, she would demand I wed her, and if I didn't, I would have her brother spreading stories about me as a ravisher of women, seducing them with the promises of marriage and reneging once I've had my way with them. He might even challenge me to personal combat over it. You don't fear you'll lose? Oh no, just that there are too many of my knights who'd be looking for a reason to fight against me, even join a conspiracy against me. Melga shrugged. Too bad. I think maybe she'll give the man a good time. Gualsor grinned. Would you like to send her a message in my name to meet her in a dark chamber? And face her wrath when she finds out it's only me? No, my Lord Baron. I think not. So some things are beyond the Baron's wild lupetta. What about the charm? Should we call in Pemberlin to deal with it? I already tossed the charm itself into the kitchen fire. That should finish it. But you may want to have him in anyhow. Take away anything bad that's left behind. Gualsor nodded. I'll deal with it. Thank you. My lord, I'm seriously afraid for myself if that one attaches herself to you. Maybe worse than a curse, I think. Ralno stood fidgeting before Gwalsor. My lord, this should not happen. I shall have your chamber guards dismissed at once. No, Ralno, don't do that. Just call the magician, as I asked. Pay him for his services and be done with it. But my lord, it is not right that persons should just invade your chambers. The guards are for just that purpose. Ralno, you know I know how easy it is for someone to slip into a chamber on some excuse. A page, say, sent to fetch something for me. Or perhaps, more openly, leave a gift from a certain lady. Or perhaps one of the maids asked to slip something in, and charmed by the tale of a lady wishing only for the Baron to notice her. No, if something worse should happen, then we might begin investigating just how it happened. But in this case, there was no harm done, and investigating could only cause people to talk, and end with gossip all over the castle. The chief steward shook his balding head. It will be done, my lord, but I do not like it. You might speak to the guards and tell them it might have been something worse. Tell them that their Baron says that they were lucky this time, but that they ought to be more awake. Ask them to consider how they would have feared had it been a curse or poison or the like. Ralno nodded, his face grim. Yes, that'll sharpen him up, at least for a while. Tostig watched as the peasants set another log into position and hauled on the ropes that would lift the upper end and allow the lower end to slide into the hole dug for it. She be coming right along, don't she, man? For true and all, Toss. Think she'll be ready when the Baron comes in? I think so. We bloodied that last bunch right there. And you'll think and make plans for you be coming in. Manic nodded. From all I hear, he's the sort who does a lot of thinking. We ought to have our lads watching careful. What be that fool Phallic doing now? Tostig broke in. Look at him. We best be getting over there, man. Phallic was a large, bad-tempered man, and more than a little stupid. The night before last, somewhat worse for the drink, he had taken offense when the wooden man, Yehor, had ignored him. Going after Yehor, he grabbed him with his hands. There had been a flash, and Phallic had been hurled back 12 feet or more. He had lain unconscious until noon yesterday, and had taken the ribbing of his fellows over the incident with bad grace. And now he's heading for the door of the wizard's shack. Tostig and Manic hurried over, but they were too late. They saw Phallic pound a big fist on the door 4 times, and then 4 times more. The door opened, and Slavin Hanstra stood there. They were too far to hear more than a sound as Phallic lunged forward, arms outstretched. Hans spoke sharply, and Phallic collapsed to the ground at his feet. By now, Tostig and Manic were close, and the bandit chief called out, "We'll be dealing with them, wizard!" Hans looked over at him and shook his large head. "No, I'll deal with him." "But he would have attacked me. His kind won't learn. If I leave him to you, he'll just try to attack me again sometime. He won't succeed, mind you, but that's neither here nor there, so I'll take care of him." "How be you killing him?" Tostig had a vision of the slumped body of Phallic, lying on an altar as sacrifice for some black rite. Hans smiled, and then, almost as if he had read Tostig's mind, said, "No, I have no intention of killing him, or using it as some sacrifice to some dark god or other. I plan to use his services." He held out a hand, palm up, and made a lifting gesture. Phallic floated to his feet, his head slumped on his chest. Manic and Tostig and Manic both jumped backwards. Old ones have mercy!" Hans snapped his fingers, and Phallic's eyes opened. "Now stand there." Hans turned to Tostig and Manik. He will serve me now, a somewhat more intelligent servant than Yahor, and he will serve as a reminder to the rest of your lot not to pester me. Lord Wizard! No, I will not take this. I will not be dissuaded. He is mine, and you will not take him from me by any means. Tostig forced himself to relax. So be it then. He wanted to say something more, declare that this was the last and only time, but he was afraid within himself that it would not be. He turned and stalked away, with what dignity he could muster. Manik grunted something wordless and then said, "Maybe we can get him to do that to the Baron if the lordship comes looking for us. I don't know that I'd like to see that done to any man. Ha! Still, it'd be good for a lordship." Tostig glanced over. There were days when his right-hand man worried him more than a little. Alrighty, so that will be all for this chapter for tonight. So take care, have a good night, and I will talk to you tomorrow.